California is scorching. The state has dealt with triple-digit weather for the past week or so, forcing the state to rely heavily on natural gas despite trying to phase out fossil fuels.
About half of California's electricity was powered by natural gas this week, while just under a third was produced by renewable energy. Here to talk about this push-pull of energy resources in the Golden State is LA Times reporter Sammy Roth. Welcome to the show.
Hey, happy to be here.
Yeah, we're great having you. Tell us more about how bad the situation's getting.
Well, I mean, it's been real hot here. Up in Sacramento, it hit 116, which had never happened before. They had an overnight low of 77, which also tied an all-time record. And you know, I've been sitting in my apartment in West LA just sweating every day. So it's bad. And I mean, on the power grid, this definitely illustrates that as ambitious and aggressive and as far as California has come with some of its climate policies, you know, this is one of the challenges that needs to be worked out. California doesn't yet quite have the solution for this situation.
So when you say that, you know, there's obviously been this shift. I presume that the increased need for air conditioners to keep people cool is putting a strain on energy, and that is why there has to be an increased reliance on natural gas as opposed to cleaner energy sources?
That's exactly right. So basically what's happening is when it gets so hot, people crank up the air conditioning, and the California power grid had previously set a record of 50,000 megawatts of demand. We smashed through that on Tuesday and hit 52,000 megawatts, so a big jump. But really the hardest time is in the evening when it's staying hot and people are, you know, still using their air conditioning, and yet all of the solar power that we've got in California, of which there is a lot, that's all, you know, basically going away. And so these gas plants are ramping up to replace it. That's what happens in the evening when it's hot typically. That's starting to change because there's a lot of batteries coming onto the grid in California. So these big lithium-ion battery installations paired with solar panels, we're getting record amounts of that. But that's still, you know, relatively in its infancy and has a long way to go. So right now, gas has been the big solution.
Well, the boiling heat has brought California dangerously close to widespread power outages, prompting the state to issue a flex alert urging residents to conserve energy. Here is Governor Gavin Newsom making his plea to Californians on Tuesday.
Everyone has to do their part to help step up for just a few more days. Individuals, the state, industries, business, all doing their part to help reduce strain on the grid. And today and tomorrow afternoon, after 4 p.m., in particular 4 p.m., please turn your thermostat up to 78 degrees or higher and avoid, to the extent possible, using any really large appliances. You can visit flexalert.org to learn more about what you can do. Californians, you've rallied before, and we can do it again.
That Obama impersonation is something else. I saw some people hallucinating on the internet that it seemed that he was wearing a sweater. It was in a pretty crisp environment himself. How are people taking these power rationing choices, or the fact that they're being asked to do so at this time?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, California has had to issue a bunch of these flex alerts now. It's been more than a week, and we've seen it every day. And especially since we've had other instances of this the last few years, I think you're seeing diminishing returns. So at first, you saw a pretty good bump of people saving power. It's gotten less and less as they've become sort of more inured to it. But interestingly, when things were really bad on Tuesday, the state sent out this emergency alert to tens of millions of people on their phones, basically begging, like, please save power right now. That created a really significant response and is probably what actually helped us avert rolling blackouts on Tuesday, the strong response to that alert.
I have to imagine some people are not happy about having to cut back on certain things, or feel that, you know, it's the government's responsibility in the state to have managed this situation better to prepare for something like this. Is there, you know, what's the angry side of it like?
Yeah, I mean, definitely there's some of that. I mean, you've got people who really don't like to get these requests, and that's understandable. It's hot, you know, you want to do what you have to do to stay cool, and that's a balance. I think one thing to keep in mind here is long term, as California and other places look at getting fossil fuels off the power grid and balancing, how to reduce emissions and get towards all clean power. There's definitely a role for customers and people like us to play in helping to balance that. There's programs in California now that pay people to cut back at particular times, or that you can let your utility cut back at a particular time and you can get compensated for that. You get people with electric vehicles, with batteries, and with home storage systems with solar that can contribute power to the grid when it's needed. So there's sort of a way to put this all together that hopefully will work out. But long term, it definitely cannot look like frantically asking people to cut back when it's 110 degrees out. The way it's happening right now is not the way it can happen long term. That's not going to be sustainable.
Yeah, this is kind of a horrible catch-22 where the fact of people having to rely more on natural gas, the fact of the state having to rely more on natural gas, exacerbates the high temperatures that are causing this crisis in the first place. And I can imagine that some people are going to be using this as an opportunity to say, score one for fossil fuels. But of course, you're going to have to run your air conditioner more and more the more that we experience global warming that are the result of the fossil fuel burn. And I wonder what you think about where the off-ramp of that cycle might be. What's the attitude about these alternative fuel sources in California at this moment?
Yeah, this is where the rubber meets the road right here. It's solving for this particular situation when it's hot and hot over multiple days and hot over the whole western U.S. So the whole grid is strained that California and other states need to solve for. There's effort. It's being worked on. The utilities in California have been ordered over the last few years to bring huge amounts of new solar and battery storage online. They're starting to look at offshore wind, at geothermal power, which can provide clean electricity 24 hours a day. The legislature just passed a bill to keep the Diablo Canyon nuclear power plant online an additional 5 years at least. So that, that's one other option for ways to sort of keep the lights on without fossil fuels. But it's definitely not guaranteed yet, how this is going to work or what the mix is going to be. There needs to be a way off of gas, but nobody's really sure what it is quite yet.
Any relief expected just in the next few days, or temperatures expected to come down?
Yeah, I think that Tuesday and Wednesday were the worst days overall for the state, especially because of those high temperatures in Northern California. It looks like by Saturday we should be starting to go back to, maybe not normal, but not record-breaking panic conditions.
Well, Sammy Roth, thank you so much for joining us today.
Very happy to.
And we'll have more Rising in just a minute. Stay with us.